Just last season, it seemed that Reggie Jackson could be the ideal point guard for the Detroit Pistons, as he was the creator and scorer at the point guard position that they really needed. He was also a perfect pick-and-roll partner with Andre Drummond, and it seemed that their acquisition of Reggie was going to be a home run. He was a guy who could attack the basket, but he also had his three-pointer improving as well. Already being a talented guy with a very good head coach and Stan Van Gundy embracing him, as well as some decent talent around him, it seems Reggie's game was really ready to be elevated to the next level, and of course, Andre Drummond at the 5 was helping that. But now it seems that Reggie Jackson could be on the way out soon for the Pistons, as this year has just been flat out not very good. When he came back from his injury, the Pistons were just not ready for a guy who likes to shoot the ball at that position. His efficiency is down, his assists are nothing to really praise, and it just seems that Reggie's fit with this Pistons team, it just might not be ideal, even if they made it work for one season. So we're going to talk about he could potentially be on the way out for the Pistons, and I think one thing that's telling is the Pistons' offensive rating as well as defensive rating are both better with Ish Smith in the game as opposed to Reggie Jackson, and Ish is more of a guy who's a pass-first player. So if they were going to trade Reggie Jackson, what would they get for him, or what should they look for? Well, in my opinion, they don't have a real power forward on the roster. Tobias Harris, I'm a fan of him for his size and his ability to score off the dribble. Marcus Morris is really not a starter. His best season came off the bench. It was by far his most efficient season as well. So I think if they could trade Reggie Jackson for a stretch 4 who could space the floor for Andre Drummond, move Tobias Harris to the small forward position, that could be the way to go. I mean, they have John Lohr. Lohr's not a three-point shooter. He might be able to hit a mid-range jumper, but it's really not the same thing in 2017. And then you insert Ish Smith back into the starting lineup. You have that pass-first point guard that they're just better with than Reggie Jackson. You move Marcus Morris to the bench. You have a stretch 4. Tobias Harris is at the 3, Andre at the 5. That could be the way to go if you want to trade Reggie Jackson. Now the next one is Zach LaVine. First off, the guy is injured, and I do hope that he can come back and be just as good as he was and even better moving forward. But the thing with LaVine is he's a very good scorer, no doubt. He can hit the 3, he's good from the field, his athleticism is through the roof, he'll dunk on your head, and his ability to just create off the dribble is very intriguing for a guy at his age. Definitely knows how to put points up. He's a damn good player. I'm not going to debate that one at all. The question with him, though, is his fit with this Minnesota Timberwolves team really ideal for them to be winning basketball 2, 3, or hell, even next season, let alone a couple of years down the road? Let's talk about it. Number one, he's not a good defensive player, and Minnesota has not been good on defense all season, and at a certain point, you're going to have to acquire some defensive players, and you're going to have to do that through looking at the trade assets on your team and finding guys who can really get you something in return. You're, of course, not going to trade Wiggins, and you're not going to trade Towns. LaVine might be the next guy up if you really want to get something back. But also, speaking of Wiggins and Towns, there's only one basketball. And when you have two young guys who seem like they can be fantastic offensive players, don't you just want to give them the ball as much as possible? On top of, with LaVine out and Ricky Rubio having the ball more, he's been actually pretty damn good. And he's like the one playmaker they have on this team. So there's a chance that playmaking as well as defense and shooting can improve by trading LaVine. And I say that because look at a guy like Patrick Patterson for the Toronto Raptors. He only averages like 8 points a game, but the defense and shooting that he has provided at the power forward position for them for multiple years now has been huge. They've always been better with Patterson in the game. Couldn't the T-Wolves use a guy like that, even if he's not as good as Zach LaVine? Look at Danny Green for the San Antonio Spurs. I think these are the type of guys that Tom Thibodeau needs to look for. I mean, if you could put two players like this at the shooting guard and power forward positions to give you the outside shooting as well as the defense, and then you still have Ricky Rubio's playmaking with the ball in his hand as well as Wiggins and Towns. I mean, look, I like Zach LaVine. I think he can be a damn good scorer, but I think that move might be necessary. Now, if we look at Derrick Favors in the Utah Jazz, Favors has had a weird season. I was riding for this dude to make the All-Star team this year, and then he had an injury that has taken him a very long time to recover from. Even though he's been playing, you can see that he's just not the same guy, and Derrick Favors at a 100% is a damn good player because, one, he's just a brute force when it comes to posting up and backing guys down, putting an elbow into you, and then making a move towards the rim, but he's also a damn good defensive player as well. Someone who can move his feet very well, whether it be sometimes along the perimeter and especially around the free throw line. So he's definitely a valuable guy, but when we look at the other big man next to him in Rudy Gobert, I mean, if Favors is posting up, Gobert's only chance of really doing anything offensively would be running for the offensive rebound. I just think the spacing could be really bad with these two because if you want Gobert to roll to the rim or just be around the rim, because again, he's a damn good offensive rebounder, then Favors has to step out and he's not a good outside shooter. I mean, I'm going to use the example of Gordon Hayward at the power forward position here, even if he doesn't play it like that often. They might be better off with this floor spacer at the 4 spot, because this team has a lot of creators with George Hill and Hayward, and Rodney Hood can dribble as well. And then if you have that 4 who can step out, you just give Rudy Gobert all the space in the world to do what he wants to do down low. Now the counter to this could be, if Favors just develops his outside shot, or at least a mid-range jumper, then you won't have to make the move, but Derrick Favors could be on the way out, even if he's a damn good player in my opinion. And finally, Eric Bledsoe. You know, I feel like Bledsoe has never had a fair opportunity to really show how good he is in the NBA, because he was drafted by the Clippers, where he was playing behind Chris Paul. He ends up in Phoenix, where he has suffered some injuries, but he also had to deal with the Suns front office signing way too many damn point guards, and now the team around him is just years away from winning, and Bledsoe's about to be like 28 years old, I'm pretty sure. I mean, this guy attacks the rim pretty damn strong. I mean, he might not be a Russell Westbrook, but he's still pretty physical going to the basket, a damn good defensive player as well as a strong playmaker. A lot of teams who are looking for point guards would love to have Eric Bledsoe, and the only reason that Phoenix would think about moving him is because he's just simply not on the career arc of the rest of these guys. I mean, Devin Booker's 21 years old? I mean, he's your star player. He's the guy that you're building this roster around. By the time he's in his prime, Eric Bledsoe is probably going to be 30 years old. It's just not ideal. Marquise Chris, he's got all the athleticism in the world. He's just going to have to improve as a defensive player and develop his offensive game more. He's young as hell as well. I mean, Bledsoe's very good. It just doesn't fit, you know? You rather trade Bledsoe away for something that can help out these young guys. I mean, another guy who I'm intrigued by is TJ Warren, someone who's been an efficient scorer for a number of seasons now. But the question is, what would the Suns look for in an Eric Bledsoe trade? I mean, you could just look for anything that helps you moving forward, whether it be draft picks or young players to go along with these guys. The only thing I would say is you don't need a shooting guard because Devin Booker's great, and again, I do think he's the guy for this team, but every other position, I mean, there's no star player anywhere. If you see any opportunity to pair Devin Booker up with a promising young guy who you think can grow into something, then I think you go in that direction. Personally, I would look for a center just because I don't think Alex Len can really be that great. I would say that's maybe your one weakness, but just anything outside of the shooting guard position, trading Eric Bledsoe away for, I would be cool with. Or if someone would just be willing to give you a high draft pick, I mean, weigh your offers, but that's not a bad move, just getting another guy from college. So there's Eric Bledsoe, there's Derrick Favors, who I love, but he might not be the ideal big man Next to Rudy Gobert, there is Zach LaVine, who might be a great scorer, but having more playmaking, shooting, and defense might benefit the Timberwolves more. And then in the case of Reggie Jackson, the Pistons are simply better when he's not in the game. It seems they would be better with a pass-first point guard and perhaps a more solidified power forward next to Drummond.